Welcome to the Five. The same five questions, a completely different experience every time.
I met today's guest online where I absolutely loved his artwork, and that got me introduced to him. And then I found out very quickly that this is a Renaissance man who is into everything and very good at everything he does. So, how about you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi. Thank you very much, Brad. I appreciate the words. So my name is Bobby Alexio. I go by AEIOU Art on Instagram. Most people know me through that. But really behind what people don't understand is I started off in creative. I've got my MFA, sorry, my Master's in Fine Arts. But I've been working with branding. So 35 plus years, I've been in branding, brand expert, worked on global brands. I'm a dad of two. I'm a professor, as you said too as well. Now that I think about it, I am probably a Renaissance man, professor. So I teach. Teach. Latest gig was through the pandemic. I taught at McMaster University here locally. So I've been around the block a few times. I've done quite a few things, and most recently, probably 5 years ago, I started engaging, as you can see in my back wall too as well. Started engaging in art and building my art portfolio, which is now turned into photography too as well. But that's me kind of in a nutshell. It's always been surrounded around creative. So I teach creative. I've mentored creative. I've mentored designers too as well. So that's been my focus. That's me kind of in a nutshell, really quickly. There's a lot more when you start peeling it back, but that's me in a nutshell.
Well, we're going to get a little bit more from you today. Speaking of, I'm going to ask you five questions. You just take your time with each question, answer from the heart, and you ready to get started?
Yes, I am.
Okay, what's the weirdest thing that's ever happened to you?
So this one, as I was telling you earlier, this one kind of stopped me for a bit because not a lot of weird things have happened to me in life, but this one does fit within the weird. So I grew up in London, Ontario. So I grew up in Canada, just southwestern Ontario, if people know where that is. And there was a bunch of us. Call us our um, little brat pack, whatever you want it is. There was a bunch of us, like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. All of us used to hang out together. Back in my day, we still had the bikes. Think of E.T. or any of those movies. That was us. And we used to go where our neighborhood was. We were probably a good 20 minutes, 25 minutes away from farmland. So any bike ride, Saturdays, Sundays, even at nighttime, we used to do it. So there used to be this abandoned house. So it's not a ghost story, but there used to be an abandoned house that was boarded up, but we had entrances, and we knew teenagers used to go there. They used to party there too as well. So we started going there. It was probably the summer. I'm trying to think right now. Probably the summer of 1973, 1974, around there. So we used to. I was probably 9 or 10, and we used to go in, grab sandwiches, put them in our bags. Like I said, exactly like those little movies you used to watch in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And we used to go in and write on the walls. We take markers. Three of my good friends at the time were also into art, creative. So I used to take a chunk of the wall and then start drawing on it. So we'd stay there for a while, go back in, and then we started noticing responses to some of the words that we said. So we thought, you know what? It's either other kids, high school kids responding back, but they're responding back to the art. One of the responses were, can you start drawing dragons? So that's where my affinity for dragons started from, even though I was born the year of the dragon. I've got a tattoo here as well. What was interesting with that is that the next day we went back and I started drawing dragons. They're not where they are now, my level of drawing, if I think about it. And I wish we had cameras back then to take pictures. We did have cameras. It's not that old, um, but what was interesting was we started a dialogue with this person, and then we recognized that the writing was the same, the person was the same. It wasn't just anybody just coming in. So we never really went through the house. Like stayed on the main floor. We probably went to the second floor a bit. It kind of creeped us out. So we never really went into stuff. We just stayed on the main floor. So we did that for probably that summer. The following summer it continued. We didn't do it through the winter. The following summer was kind of where it got pretty cool just on the responses because the person then started to draw, started to illustrate, would leave books behind for us to read, comic books, Marvel, DC, this and that, whatever it is. So we never thought anything of it. Then it just kind of, as we got older, became teenagers, we stopped going. So then I just remember with my friends, we were probably grade 11, grade 12, where that house was now going to be demolished. It was going to be torn down. So we were pretty sad about it, that it was going to be torn down. At the time, what came up in the newspaper was there was a lady, and I wrote her name down. I had to look her up. Shelley Richards Johnson was actually living in the attic for close to 15 years. Yeah, way up in the attic. So this is this lady who probably had either bipolar, schizophrenia, some kind of disease, was living in the attic for that house while it's been abandoned for that long time. So that's probably, I would say, the weirdest thing. I get goosebumps right now because as we were there, she was there. So she would come down as people would leave. She would write things on the wall. She would leave stuff behind. But she was living in that house for, they said, close to 15 years. And we just thought it was another student, somebody else coming in, or another kid coming in. But no, we assumed it was this woman. It had to be this woman that was living there. So she was taken away, obviously gone to mental health institute, I would assume. But yeah, that would probably be the weirdest thing. That was when I was young. Everything else has not been as weird, but for me it was, and I still get a little bit of it's unfortunate we never met her. It's unfortunate we never heard her. It's unfortunate we didn't have those conversations with her because in a small degree, she was inspiring to all of us that were there because she was connecting to all of us, whether mine was my art. A good friend of mine, Francis Richard, used to leave notes and poems. So she would respond back to her that way. We just thought it was a cool little game. And yeah, that's probably the last time we heard of her. We always bring her up in conversation. I'm still good friends with those people. So we still bring her up and we actually call her Aunt Shelley. So
That's actually really cool. Like, I mean,
yeah.
it kind of gives me that. Do you remember an old movie called like When a Stranger Calls?
Yes. Yeah.
The calls are coming from inside the house.
Oh my God, I shit my pants when I remember watching that movie. And I'm like, fuck, they're inside the house. Get the fuck out. And it was kind of, it was kind of like that. Like we were a little spooked. Like we were young. We were a little spooked because we were kind of, what could have happened if she did come down or if it was her? Then we talked about, could it have been somebody else? But it's just the writing and the style and the discussions were too one singular versus to being multiple people coming in. And no teenagers they're gonna probably either scribble over our shit or write over stuff. But there was little notes written like, this is beautiful, that's great. So we knew those were kind of like high school kids. And we ran into some of the high school kids, so that's what made a difference. But this person, we asked them, are you the one that's writing this information? Are you the one that's writing back to us? And they're like, no, fuck that. We wouldn't be doing that. So, but nobody realized that she was up in her attic. Like, and it was one of those attics where you had to actually pull down the stairs. So as young kids, we're not going to do that. We're not going to go. Surprised me, we didn't, but we're not going to do that. The house was spooky. The house was a spooky kind of house, but we only went there during the day. Like it was just one of those things. Our parents didn't want us going there ever. So, but again, that's where I say it's kind of like an ET Stand By Me kind of group of kids that hung out together. I don't know how your childhood was, but we had that collective, very diverse group of people, tall, big, large, small, skinny, athletes, non-athletes. It was Goonies is what comes to mind, but yeah. It was all good. It was all good. It's a great little story and great part of how your life can take off at anywhere. And then just the inspiration of continuing art. It wasn't, again, 100% Shelley, this woman, but it was definitely, there was an inspiration there for sure. So you can touch people in different ways. And I think that's how she was doing it at that time.
So I guess we can move on to the next question, which is, what's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you?
Yeah, so I looked at this question, Brad. I looked at this question scariest because they're scariest as in I just shit my pants. Something just scared me. But I would probably say the scariest thing in my life, and as a cancer survivor, you battle with it every single day, would have to be my battle with cancer. And I am one of those emotional people, so I will get emotional on this stuff. I hope you don't mind. But it started in 1991. So As most people know now, based on Instagram, I was married once. I have 2 kids. So when I got married in 1991, on our honeymoon, I started feeling sick. Um, the second week into our honeymoon, I started feeling sick. So when I got back, September 1991, within probably a month's time, I was diagnosed with colorectal cancer. So I battled that for close to 5 years, different stages of chemotherapy, radiation therapy too, as well. Then coming out of that, so I came out of that, we had our first kid. So then I became an advocate back in the day when Live Strong was Live Strong was strong versus where it's sitting now. So I became an advocate there, spoke across Canada too as well, um, and in the States, just for early detection. Like at that point, I was in my late 20s, so just early detection wasn't something that people talked about. Prevention wasn't something they talked about. Screening wasn't that, not just with colorectal, any type of cancer. So the toughest battle there was that you realize at that stage I had dropped to 100, I think it was 125 pounds was my lowest weight. I'm 5'11", so 125 is, I wasn't that, I think I was 125 at 11 or 12 years old type of thing. So um, that you realize your friends who your friends are, and the people that took care of me, saw me there, were part of my life there. They're still part of my life now. Like they're a huge part of my life. If not, they're my family, not just friends. They're part of the family. So I think the biggest thing, the reason I call it scariest, and I've talked to many, like yourself, with the Instagram platform, I've talked to many people that are dealing with cancer and fighting cancer, and people have reached out to me. And then I had a reoccurrence, which kind of trifecta kind of way of things connecting, but I had experience in 2016 as well. I had my third time being diagnosed with laryngeal cancer, and it was early stages, so it was quite treatable. There was a removal of it. I had surgery. It's all scopic surgery, and that started to make me realize, when you say scary, um, how it can impact you, but how it can change you, and how it actually starts you to force say, "What the fuck am I doing in life right now? What am I doing?" And it's kind of um, that's when the light went off, and then the following year I came out, 2017. But when I talk about with a lot of people, when it comes to a disease such as cancer, and this touches me because I've talked to quite a few people, is that um, we live with it every day. It doesn't go away. Even people say that you're in remission, or it's gone. Great, you should be happy. It doesn't go away. It doesn't leave, right? It doesn't. You have to deal with it. No different than. I don't want to directly compare it to somebody who's been abused, but it's the same type of thing, right? Your body, your mind has been abused by this disease. Some people make it, and I know a lot of people that haven't made it. And I think the idea of every day you wake up and you thank, whether you believe in God or not, you thank somebody for you still being not being here, or when you go into your tests, when you start your test, your yearly test, that you go back and you start to pray and you start to think, will this hit me again? And that is scary. That is a scary way of fearful. There's fear in you, but that fear also turns into a drive, right? That also makes you stronger. And I think you've probably attached to that based on my based on my posts and my comments and so on, that you gotta move forward. But I would have to say, by far, that still remains the scariest thing in my life. I don't like it to control me. It doesn't control me, but I would be lying to you right now if I said it doesn't. I'm not fear of it, or I'm not. It's not scary, and it is. It is. It's kind of what's the best way to put it? It's like your ugly little cousin or your ugly uncle or whatever it is. That's constantly in your head, right? It's just somebody that's there. It's there. Even when you see your oncologist, and I've had my oncologist now, the latest one, for 18 years. It's like, you've got to change this. Your diet's here. You got to move this. You get your blood levels down. Da 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 da. Whatever those thoughts are, Like you got a stomach ache and you go, holy shit, could this be something? You've got your hair starts falling out on your beard and you're like, what's this? I'm kidding. But you always have to question what's going on with your body, because if you haven't dealt with it, you don't. And um, like I said, I've seen too many people in my life pass away from it. But I've seen a lot of people fight it and beat it. Um, and that to me is, yeah, it's still, as you can tell right now, it's weighty on me. Because as I think, I don't talk a lot about it because it doesn't define me. It doesn't say who I am. Cancer is not a definitive point in my life. It changed my life. It continues to change my life. But as you can see, it's not something that I wear it on my chest. Like I'm not what's a victim. I'll never play the victim card. I always play the survivor card. So I would say, yeah, that would by far, my friend, be the the scariest thing in my life for sure.
Yeah, we didn't talk beforehand about your answers or anything like that, so it was going to be a surprise. But I knew you were a cancer survivor, so I was going to be very surprised if that was not your answer, because I just I think that would be absolutely terrifying, especially at the age you were when you were first diagnosed. You were young. You don't even have that on the radar. That is like all of a sudden you're mortal. You know, like when you're in your 20s, you're immortal. The world is yours to own, and then all of a sudden somebody says, "Wait, no, you're not." And I think that's terrifying.
No, it is, and I think it's because that was like, if you think about it, that's like early '90s, and even then, like the discussion around cancer, and also at the same time, what was happening, it happened like 10 years before, but at the same time, what was happening was the whole AIDS crisis coming through, right? So there was a lot of ways how things were handled, even with myself, who at the time was a straight man married, how things were handled at the hospitals. You could see it. I was actually when I was in treatment and chemotherapy and so on. And this does this does make me cry. There was an isolated bubble of men that were dealing with HIV and AIDS that were isolated from everybody else that were going through cancer, and they weren't even in the same wing. They weren't even allowed to talk to us, right? They weren't even allowed. We couldn't exchange words with them. So that rings, and that's 1992. That rings solid in my head, right? So it's kind of back. There was no discussion around cancer. There was no discussion around AIDS, HIV, and you think where cancer is now, it's multi-billion-dollar industry where it's come, and prevention is a discussion, and anything that can create. I'm not saying that research and industry and hospitals don't need to exist or should not exist to make money, uh, but it is an industry. Cancer is an industry. Unfortunately, that's what it's become, right? Like, so it's like everybody will know somebody that's had cancer. I think it's 1 in 4 now within family members. So um, it is. I think that's a really good point. It is frightful, the weight of it. But I think what's great about it is that when somebody is diagnosed now, there's always, unfortunately, but there is, unfortunately, there's someone left and right that has gone through it. You can get advice from somebody. You can get mentors from somebody. You can get buddies or pals, cancer pals that have gone through it too as well. So, and you're right, at an early age when you're in that kind of boom. But I think everything in my life, I've been hit with stuff in my life that's caused me to kindly finally be me and finally be who I should be. So, no, I appreciate. Yeah, it's. I don't hide from it. I don't. Like I said, I'd say there's probably over 100 people that have reached out to me over the years with Instagram, because that's all I have is Instagram when it comes to my work. That have reached out, asked questions. Hey, I've been diagnosed. Hey, I'm going through this. Hey, what should I do? So as you can tell, I'm very passionate about it too as well. I like to help and not leave people isolated, because people feel isolated through it.
I'm going to say you're very passionate about everything. Everything you do, you're passionate about, and it shows. That's one of the things that drew me to you. You're passionate about your artwork. You're passionate about social issues and getting the word out. You're passionate about people being able to talk to you about cancer and everything like that, it just shows you're a really good guy, and it 100% shows.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for that.
So, what's the most memorable moment of your life so far?
So I'm going to kind of give you two. And those that know me, I would say probably the most memorable moment of my life is August 2nd, 2017. And it's when I came out, right? Came out as a gay man because I think that, yay, I think yeah, exactly. Yay for us. I think what it did, like I said to you before, there's a series of events that led to me coming out, right? Which is, and I'll talk about because it's one of my answers later on. But from my parents died when I was young, to me being married, me being Greek Orthodox. My brother came out gay, so my brother's gay as well. He came out gay in high school. So the pressure I felt was that I had to be the good Greek Orthodox boy. Did I feel, was I attracted? Like, I guess the question becomes, was I attracted to guys? I was attracted to both. I was attracted to personalities of men at that time, or boys. Men. Let's say men. High school. Let's say men. But I was dating girls. I was solidly dating girls. So even my ex-wife, who I married, we met in 1988. At that time, I was 24, and there was love there, right? But through that, as we went through that, it was kind of this pressure of being a good Greek man, boy, get married, have kids, have a great job, be in business, open up a restaurant. What Greeks do. But I didn't open up a restaurant. I went right into business. And I think then there's certain things that happen along the way. Two of my best friends passed away in 2010, 2011. She passed away. They had 3 kids. She passed away 2010 of cancer. And that story is kind of what it unravels when I say what's my most memorable moment of coming out. That's when the unraveling started to happen. I divorced in 2007. Still wasn't myself. Still felt in 2007 I had to date women. And when Julie and Kyle kind of came back in my life, they were university friends. They knew. Julie told me right before I got married, are you certain? My thought at the time when she was asking me that question was, am I certain that this is the woman? Versus, are you certain you're doing the right life thing right now, right? And I think her passing, what was sad about it too as well, is that she pulled 27 of us together. And she gave us a card, right? We did not know that she was terminally ill. She was pregnant with a 3rd kid at the time. And on each one, there was written a word. So everybody opened it up. She played guitar. I have her guitar actually here. She gave me her guitar when she passed, and I got to pick it up and play it someday. But the thing is that she wrote everybody. So everybody went through, opened it up. We were all crying at the time this was happening. And the thing is that as we read the card, you could see that she had spent time to pick out that one word that defined that person, and defined them really well. And I still get the chills when I open up mine. I still get the tears when I open up mine. When I opened it up and read it, I still have it. I have it framed now too as well. And her word, oh fuck. Her word for me was effortless. Like, it doesn't take any effort to know you, any effort to grow with you, any effort to love you. You don't create challenges. You don't create headaches. You fight for yourself when you have to fight for yourself. You were just effortless. And that was 2010. So what happened after she passed, so she didn't want to go through any type of cancer treatment. So she had her 3rd kid. And then 2 months after she had her 3rd kid, the cancer had taken over, and taken over her life. So Kyle and his 3 kids, everybody else they're Australia, so they're Irish Australian kind of mix of the Mannings and so on. So Um, he stayed with me with the three kids. I took him in. It was just myself and my kids, so I took him in, and within 2 months, they decided to go back to Australia because his in-laws, plus his parents and siblings and so on, they all lived there, just outside of Sydney. So, oh, fuck, you made me cry. So, so, so he moved back. I would say summer 2011. Oh no, sorry, summer of 2010. And then that Christmas Eve 2010, he was hit by a drunk driver just outside of Sydney in a parking lot. They said he was dragged around um, for so many miles before this drunk driver realized that he was tagged onto the car still, right? So he passed. So I get a call Christmas Eve here because they're 16 hours ahead, I believe, at the time. That said, "Hey, Kyle's been hit. He's in the hospital. We need you down here," because they were like probably they were two of my best friends. We need you down here. So I just booked. I think to share at that time, like 10 years ago, I think the flight was 2,800, like last minute 2,800, maybe 3,000 by the time it was done, but it was worth it. So I fly down there. I get down there. You gain your days, you go back. So I really don't even know it's a cyclone now. I think I landed there Monday. Now that I'm trying to think back, Monday or Sunday? Sunday. And at the time, I was greeted by his sister and brother-in-law at the airport, and they told me he had passed away. He didn't make it. And so when I got there, his dad, there's an Irish pub called McNally's or McNeil, something Mick, in Sydney, where they were there. They were all there. All the parents, families, siblings were all there, and people were buying them rounds because I think with Irish tradition, the key thing is just to celebrate through drink, through whiskey or scotch or whiskey, not scotch, and Guinness, right? So his dad just leaned over and he says, "We want you to actually read the eulogy. We want you to be the one that reads the eulogy," which is still, still to this day, one of my greatest honors to do that. So very trying times. Went through that week. Did the eulogy. Brad, I'd written it for 5 minutes. I was, I was up there for half an hour. I couldn't get through it. Family members came up and held me at some times. It was probably the toughest thing I had to do. If you had toughest, one of my toughest things, I would have answered that one. But when I came off the eulogy and came down, so think about it, that's 2011. Kyle's mom grabs me, hells me, and she goes, "That's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard." And then she says, "We know, we all know, we just want you to be happy and finally be you. You need to stop fighting this," right? So, spent a good time there, came back, fast turn it to 2017. So it took me 6 fucking years, 6 years to kind of get up the courage. That the worry was always I was going to lose somebody. Somebody's going to leave my life because I had put so much time or effort or just love into people, right? So I didn't want to lose that. So I went and saw a psychiatrist. And I think the smartest thing she told me there, she goes, "Do you have 5 people that you know that could care less whether you're gay or straight, whatever it is, that you trust and you can tell, but aren't immediate family or friends?" Right? So that was the greatest journey. So I did, some were coworkers, some were people from high school. All of them were in tears. All of them were joyous. All of them were happy. Their response was really good. So it kind of builds your confidence to tell somebody. So that was like July 2017. Then I finally told my kids. My kids' reaction. That's why I had it as a two-pronged thing. My kids' reaction was, my daughter was like, "Great, you're cooler now. I was always the cool dad, but now you're the cooler dad." And my son was, "Are you still my father?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "That's all that matters." And the tying of that with my 2 kids is that they are probably will be my greatest achievement. So coming out 2017 at the age of 53, and my two kids and their support through that was undeniable, got me through it, right? Even my ex-wife was in tears. Now, I got lucky with that because she had moved on with her life. I think when you're in the marriage and that comes out, it's not great for man or woman because they're like, fuck, what do I do? You've been lying to me for so many years. And she had moved on. She's with a great guy. So her response was nothing but love. Nothing but love and admiration and tears and, oh my God, finally you're yourself. She knew, she had inkling or thoughts. Most people did. Um, and and I would say that coming out, July came out. Then I went to, which is a great friend of mine now in England. I went to England. Um, and then when I came back, I just went on Instagram and said, who would have known at 53? Here I am, finally myself. And I put a baby picture up. And it was amazing. Instagram wasn't that much. It was a good response, but Facebook is where all the responses happen. Because Facebook, if you think about my age, is where all the lineage of people are. So all high school Gen X people hang out in Facebook. So that's where the response came through. That's where it came through quite heavy. And that would have to be, still is, my more memorable moment because I believed it was an anchor for me to start doing my art. It brought together my straight friends, new gay friends. I didn't have any gay friends, so new gay friends. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. I had gay friends that I worked with in advertising, but they weren't like close to me. And that just opened everything up. So 2017 to 2019, I traveled to events, New York City Pride, World Pride, San Francisco Folsom, just dove right into that one. 7 events still. One of my best friends forever, Ray, had us do 7 events in 3 days. So it was, which is crazy. It was 2, 3, 2. Yeah. So 2 on Friday, 3 on Saturday. Now, if you think about days, it goes right to mornings. And then the 2 Folsom Fair, which opened my eyes to as well, on the Sunday. But yeah, I would have to still it has a lot of, I still talk about it now. I used to celebrate it on Instagram every year, like I used to do but it kind of coincides with my remission. So what was interesting with that is that every time I'd celebrate 5 years of being gay, it was 5 years of being in remission because the same thing happened at 2017. I was my first year in remission too as well. So it's all good. Yeah, I would say by that is that I think the interesting thing there is that you don't, I didn't think it would make that much of a difference to how I felt about me, like me being 100% and me being honest. There was a time where I'd be in conversations when I wasn't gay or I wasn't out yet. That pressure, that stress of not being yourself did exactly that, created stress. You started feeling towards my last years, I was being dishonest with people that actually loved me, people that were in my life, right? People that were friends and family that would say, oh, when are you going to get married? Why aren't you dating? Why aren't you doing something? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? And I was lying every time, right? And the weight of those lies to people that you love was crazy. Like it just started adding pressure to my life to the point where I left my job in 2016. For 6 months, I stopped working till I decided what was going on in my life, in my head. So yeah, that is by far still the most memorable time of my life for sure. Still is.
That's an amazing story, and it goes to show that it's never too late to change your life. Like you can change your life at any point, any day. You can change your life forever. But it also makes me a little afraid for the next question because I started crying on that one. So the next question is, what is the saddest thing that's ever happened to you?
Yeah, that one have to be. Yeah, I will have to say for yourself the questions that you've asked and how people respond. That some people have had tragedy in their life, and I've had a lot of tragedy in my life. So and that doesn't make me special. That doesn't make me better. But it makes you evolve as a human more. Unfortunately, when people have more tragedy and difficulty in their life, either become assholes or they become super kind. It's the two sides, right? Either you're going to become a total dick or bitch. Let's be gender neutral. But I think the thing is that with me, it has been tough, and I've managed because of the good people around me um, to figure out what to do and not be bitter, not be angry, because I have every right to, like some people say. But there's people that are worse than me, and I think that's one thing I've always balanced in life is that my dad used to say it all the time. There's people that are in worse positions than you, no matter what you're in right now. So he'd say, I'd say in soccer when I played soccer, basketball, hockey, all that fun stuff. I'd say, hey, my ankle's off, it's tweaked. My dad, don't forget, he's Greek. There is no, there is no filter. He's like, at least you're not in a wheelchair. At least you have both your legs. At least you have your hands. At least you have your sight. At least you have your hearing. At least you can go to school. So we have to take those blessings, everything that we have to care for it. So I think the saddest time, I think the saddest part of my life, and it still is when my mom passed away. Both my parents passed away. My mom passed away in 1983. My dad passed away in 1996, 13 years later. He had remarried, but it was like a swan song with them. They were meant for each other. And my mom passed away from cancer. And I think the hardest thing for me to deal with at the time, because she first diagnosed, I was 16. She passed away when I was 19. That there's this person that you look up to and that you love, right? They would do anything for you. And then it turns out at a young age where you're not ready for it. And maybe it kind of, points the direction of why I didn't come out at the age I didn't come out, right? But because my brother was working, my dad was working. She was first diagnosed with breast cancer in I'm trying to think of the years, 1979, and I was 15. So back then it was archaic. Even if you call it 1979, it was archaic, right? Because I went in with my aunt and her to her doctor, family doctor. And they said, yeah, you have a lump here. Don't worry about it. Come back in 2 months. And I think at the time, I always do. I remember and maybe that's where I learned the scariest part of cancer when we talked about it earlier. It was the fear in my mom's eyes. And the fear was, she talked about it for years after as well. She didn't know where we were as kids. She didn't know if we were going to be married. She didn't know if we were going to be happy. She didn't know if we were going to be successful in life. So as any parent, not just Greek parent, but any parent, they want success for their kids. They want their kids to be set up. They want their kids to be, because they came from a, war-torn country. They were born during World War II. Right. So they came from, I remember my aunts telling me stories of walking down the streets, and the Italian at that point, because they were aligned with Germany, had taken over the Greek streets and were shooting people as the kids walked to school. So to me, their hunger or their strive or their dedication to being successful coming in this new world, because we came in 1969, that always sung true with me. And I think the thing is, my parents worked hard. My mom had 3 jobs. My dad had 3 jobs. And I think to see that all the passion, the home they built, the kids they had, just like that, it changed. And so she had her first surgery. We went back after 2 months. And they had finally they had scans done and had it metastasized through her chest. Into her lungs, into her lymph nodes. She had, at that point, single mastectomy done, and then everything was fine. And then 2 years went by, and then it started in her lungs, so it was coughing. But the doctors weren't as true with us. I was 17 at the time. My dad didn't understand the science, the medical jargon too well. My aunt was always there. She took us to all the appointments. She was well educated and so on. And then I just remember that my mom got sick. I couldn't even ask the question. I couldn't bear to ask. And back then we had what was called VON, Victoria Order of Nurses, and they came to your house. So I just remember asking, innocent as a kid, even though I was 18 at the time, just asking the VON, like, when's the coughing going to go away? And she turns at me, she goes, it's not. Like, has your doctor not told you this is terminal? This is it. And I still remember that day. I was alone. It was just me and my mom. My dad was at work. My brother was at work. And there was nothing that I could do to change that. And I would say that she stayed with the house as long as she could. And then she had to go to care at the hospital. And it still sticks in my head, July 24th. And my mom passed away on her wedding anniversary. And 5:34 in the morning, we get a call. I hear the phone ring. My dad picks it up, and they said, your wife has passed. You guys need to come to the hospital. So I didn't go at the time. My aunt, again, with her husband, and my dad went to identify. They just had to go do the writing, not identify the body, but they had to do the writings and stuff. But I had visited my mom the day before, and no different than somebody who goes through, and I've seen that too, through Alzheimer's or dementia. They are so riddled. Back then, they were so riddled in painkillers that all I remember is that it's just the fear on her face, holding her hand, and not knowing this is her last day, but the doctors then told us this is probably her last day. So we spent the whole day with her there, and it was. But our mom wasn't there. Like, when you look at somebody's eyes, they're in so much pain, or they're so far gone. They can't recognize you even. And we had some good times when she was at home. I would stay with her all the time, and it just discussions and stuff I didn't know about her. Probably discussions like we're having right now is things she was afraid of, things that had happened to her life when she was younger, being where they grew up and stuff in Greece. So, and then my dad, we had a little bit of a different relationship. He passed away in 1996, and my biggest regret there was never closing the bond. I respected my dad quite a bit. I loved my dad quite a bit, but we had grown estranged. He tried, because he was still around when I fought my first battle with cancer. Unfortunately with him, he was diagnosed with skin cancer, highly treatable. We got the reports after, decided not to go through treatments at all. Then it got into a lymph system, became lymphatic. And then, not knowing to us, even our stepmom at the time, we just found out that he was pushed into the hospital. He was very sick, and he died within 2 weeks of that time. So, I think when people say saddest time, I think that's why I came back to not a lot of people have gone through, because I look at my best friends now, their parents now are starting to get sick, where mine happened 30 years ago, right? 40 years ago when it comes to my mom, close to 40 years next year. And I think that pain or that tragedy, say which is saddest, I think it's all based on what you've gone through in life. Because somebody said my saddest day was when I lost my first job. But I would say, how do they say the 1, 2, 3 is death, divorce, losing your job is like 1, 2, and 3. And losing a loved one like that, who's supposed to watch you walk down the aisle or get married or whatever your life could be. That's hard. It still is hard. Like they live within me. They're part of me, part of my DNA. We went back to Greece quite a bit since then, and every time somebody from the family sees me, they're crying or in tears. They're like, "Oh, you got your mom's eyes, or you've got your dad's hair," and all that, the stuff that goes with it. But yeah, losing my parents at that age, there's not one thing that I don't do now or since they've died that I don't say I wish they were here. Like I wish that they knew my kids, or my kids knew them. They have the one side of grandparents, but not my side, So, but it's funny. My Christmas traditions, my way of cooking, they line up with my parents, right? It's in my, even though my mom died when I was 19, I carried through that stuff. Not that I forced it, like I have to do this because my mom passed away. It just, I think just the DNA, your genetics just carried it through, right? Hereditary makeup to be that way. So I'm happy when I see that. I'm happy when I see, oh, hey, you know what? My dad used to cross his hands this way, or my mom used to say things this way, or cook things this way. But yeah, I would probably say losing a loved one easily. Yeah, it's hard. It's tough. You got me really good. You got me in a really good thinking mood today. Sorry.
No, that's what I was hoping to do. Just because there's other people going through this right now. I lost my mom. Sorry, you got me. I'm emotional. This has been very good today because it's one of those things that it's always there. It's like you don't get over it. You get better at it. And there's still some days. My dad's alive still, which I'm very thankful for. But when I go to visit him, which is quite often, it's like there's pictures of my mom and everything. And some days I can look at them, some days I can't. And it's been years, but as somebody told me once that grief is love that has no place to go, and that made me feel better about it. So
that's actually a really good way. That's a great way to look at it, though. Is that I think too many cultures will say don't grieve, especially with men. Don't cry. Don't show your emotion. Be strong for the family. I grew up that way. That's how I did grow up that way. So I think a lot of it, when you think about myself, yourself, a bunch of other people that have gone through it, where, sexually you're not yourself. You're fighting cancer. Your family's passed away. You're dealing with deaths. So I think I think that's what I like. I love this platform, to be honest with you, because there are people that are going through that because of certain reasons can't be themselves. They can't be 100% themselves. Whether it's pain, whether it's I've got to do this, whether it's responsibilities, whether it's accountability, be there for the family, be there for your friends. All that stops you from being you because you don't have time to spend on you. And I like the idea that you just said, what you just said right now. What did you say again with grief? Because I got to write that down. With grief
grief is just love that has no place to go.
Yeah.
Because the love never stops. That's what makes the grief. It's got nowhere. You can't spend it on them. So
yeah, I had one of those, and a little bit. I think it does get better because I've had my parents' engagement picture. They were young. I'm trying to think their ages now, early 20s maybe, in Athens, and I've got that engagement picture up in my loft kind of rec room, and I think probably, I'll be honest with you, Brad, probably like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, just before I came out, I looked at the picture and I finally hit me to say, hey, mom, hey, dad. It took me that long in my life that I didn't tear up, that I looked at the picture and recognized, no, that's them. That's them versus I just glazed over pictures. I glazed through albums. And now, since my daughter has gone back to where I grew up, she's at university, the city I grew up in. So I'm there all the time. And I walk down the streets we used to walk with my parents. I walk down the streets where my mom used to hold my hand. I walk down that street where we went to parties, this or that, or McDonald's or whatever it is. And I go, no, no, we lived here because I had separated it. Because it's very easy to separate pain from a city that you grew up in because that was painful. And I never went back. And then and friends of mine there were like, fuck, when are you coming to London? And I'm like, yeah, I'll come down. But then you realize that once you open up the doors and and I think that's where things just came together at a good time, at the right time, I guess, um, and acknowledge that, yeah, they were in your life and they meant a lot in your life. And that grief never goes away. Like the pain doesn't go away. I think the pain goes away. The pain does go away. But them wanting them or needing to talk to them, because you don't get a response now. Before you used to get a response, whether it was bad or good, you got a response. So loss of a parent at an early age, as your parents get older, lost at any age, but it's like they say, I forget the exact quote, but you should never be a parent bearing your kids, but you should never be a kid losing your parents at a young age. Right? There's that side of things that's not supposed to happen. You're supposed to outlive your parents, and your kids are supposed to outlive you. So that's kind of the thinking, right? And when that kind of gets shaken up, where kids lose their parents at a young age, or parents lose their kids, the order's off. Something is off, right? This shouldn't be happening. So, and it is, and it could be very destructive, and you could turn out to be. It pushed me. I'll be honest with you. It pushed me to be more driven in my own career, in my own life. It pushed me into probably becoming somebody at an early age I shouldn't have been, like getting married, not being gay. Because even when I got married, there was still that struggle there. But I'm like, this is the right thing to do. And I don't hold that against my mom, but I hold that kind of, there's a responsibility that fell on me. This is who I have to be. I have to carry on that name. I have to carry the Alexio name, because my brother was out at the time. So, and I never thought of it, well, he's the gay one, so I can't be. I just kind of did. Find a girl, fall in love, get married, have kids. And every path that way, every kind of plateau or something that I hit, I always look back, Brad, and I said, would my mom be happy with that? Like, would my mom be happy with this decision, or the house that we got, or the curtains that I put up, or the couch that I bought? Would my mom love it? And that to this day, I still do that, right? And I teach my kids, taught my kids ever since they were young, like what their grandparents were like what they did. I try to make them live through me, through them. They went to Greece with me too as well. And saw where my parents grew up, and my aunts and my uncles and all that. So yeah. So this is a good conversation for sure. For sure. Thank you. Thank you for sharing with me too as well. I appreciate that.
Couldn't not share with you after what you've shared with me today. So
Well, thank you. Thank you.
that kind of leads into the final question, which is based off your life experience so far. What's the best advice you can give the listeners out there today?
I think and I thought about this hard, but then I think what floated to the top is naturally, I think who I've become in life. You said it before, like you said it earlier about, I'm just a good guy, and I appreciate that. I tear up over that because I don't think anybody says, "Oh, I'm the best guy out there. I'm the nicest guy out there." But I always wasn't. There was times in my life I was selfish. There was times in my life it was about me. Times in my life I didn't care about other people. I just cared about my family or my friends. Who gives a shit about anybody else? But I started when I started my Instagram page, and that in the last year, 2 years, it's blown up like crazy with gallery showings next year, and now the photography and articles coming out in Out Magazine, which I have to thank my agent for that. But one thing I started saying and expressing, whether it was through my dances or supporting other artists, supporting people like yourself, supporting other people that just wanted to spread good. I always finished everything off with be kind, be good, always give. And I think I say this with a really heavy heart. Um, we've gotten to a place right now in the world that we can't be selfish. And I would say, if anybody is listening, because you don't know where people are, right? You don't know where people are mental health wise, physically, financially, anything, is just to help people. Be good to people. Reach out. I probably donated, and people say, hey, you know what? A homeless person on the street, well, they're probably either crazy or they're this or they're that. And when somebody says you're crazy, so fuck them. When did humanity just start turning its back on other humans, right? When did that happen? And I learned again from my parents that probably in total, I probably gave away, my kids thought it was crazy, but probably $100 here and there, $5 here, $10 here, $5 over there. Um, and just to see, there's a gentleman I live in a pretty affluent area of Hamilton and Ancaster, but if you there's a certain area where you drive through at the lights, because there's affluency in this neighborhood. There's two gentlemen. They're always up at the lights. Through thick or thin, cold, hot, whatever it is, they're always there. And they're always asking for money, right? They're always right on this. So the cars stop, they just go up and down the roads of the cars. And there's one guy, we've been seeing them for, finally asked him his name. His name is Riley. Give him money every time I see him. And just to see his face when you just didn't give him a quarter, but I gave him $20 and I said, Merry Christmas. He started crying. My daughter was in the car at the time. And I would say the thing that we've all forgotten is to help people, help other people. Like, when you think about, this is not a political thing because I think you know where I stand with this, but when kids die in a school, innocent kids die in a school, and teachers, and whether it's innocent bystanders or policemen or anybody dies, line of duty, health practitioners, whatever it is, a lot of them died during, COVID, pandemic, and so on. When we can't stop and empathize with them, empathize with that family, speak empathy, say, well, I'm glad it didn't happen in my school, so let's just move on, right? And that to me is tragic, because unless it happens to you, it doesn't matter, but it should matter. Because, and I'll give this kind of comparison. It's like somebody either having flu that you will get it, or you've got a little dot on your toe and you don't think anything about it, but in 5-6 years it turns into cancer, right? It's the same thing. If you don't start taking care of each other, it's getting worse and worse and worse. So all I can say, I can't control homelessness. I can't control people on the street. I can't control people in bad times. I can't control that right now, but I can empathize with my neighbors, my friends, my family. But strangers, I think when they say be neighbors, be good neighbors, I think we forgot how to do that. That if you see something having a hard time, their car broken, I always try to do that. And I'm not a martyr. I'm not the perfect person, but I will say I won't inch away from, if I see somebody struggling, if people reach out to me and they're having a tough day, bad day, and I get that a lot. You must get it tons, but I get that a lot because I throw empathy out. I tell people who I am. I talk about struggles. So that opens the door for people to come back to you. So if we did anything, if you say give any advice to anybody, just open the doors a little bit. Don't be so close-minded. If somebody reaches out to you, listen to why they're reaching out to you. If you can help them, just be kind. Be kind. I know I have a mug that says "Be kind" on it. Everybody says that, whether you like her or not, Ellen DeGeneres used to say that: be kind, take care of each other. And I think there's something in that message that has been lost on people. Like, it just became very political while the pandemic shut down for 2 years. Everybody shut down, and I think that there's too many people suffering right now. Like you and I, we can look at it and you could say we're both of white privilege with crazy ass beards and still have our hair. Um, but I think the thing is that you don't know what everybody is, and I think that's what I like about what you're doing is that I didn't come from money. I didn't come from affluency. I came from two immigrant parents. I came here when I was 4 in Canada. So you still work hard. You still have to work and get it. But at the same time, my abilities, my talent opened doors for me. If I didn't have that, I think my name would have closed doors for me. Right. So it's kind of the not everybody has those opportunities. That's why, and this might this might be a favorite for some people or not, but when you look at the 1%, the billionaires that are out there, and people respect their hard work. I'm not saying I don't respect their hard work, but they've come from places where money has allowed them to be. And I'm not talking about the Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or those guys that have worked hard, that have come from nothing. I'm talking about, the Kardashians or even Elon Musk to a degree, right? Because he came from a rich African family. But I don't talk about them. Like, don't waste your time. And the other thing was, don't waste your time on admiring those, but start admiring yourself and then start helping others. Work down. So if I'm sitting in a good spot in my life right now, that's all I want to do. If I can help one person, that also, because I'm pointing this way because it's on my wall here, that's what made me do the cause work that I did last year too as well. Whether it's 1 in 5 children that are living in poverty. Don't Say Gay bill came out. I did illustrations on that. That got picked up, which is great. And even the Ukrainian war. So I think we have to look. Unfortunately, our, call it community, our world puts people at status level. Well, if you believe you're at a certain status and you're doing well, unfortunately, then look down or look left and right, and just be kind with each other. Just be good with each other if you can. That's what I would leave behind. That's what I would want to leave. That's what I would be known for. And I'm happy that you had said earlier that you're just a good person, because that's enough for me. If that's what it says on my tombstone, which is years and years from now, I'm happy with that. I'm ecstatic with that. So there you go. That's my advice.
One time, one of my friends said something, and you know how, like, sometimes you'll just hear somebody say something and you take it to heart, and it changes kind of like your perspective on everything. We were going somewhere. We stopped to get gas. We'd all got out to get some snacks and everything like that. And a homeless person came up and asked my friend for some money, and she gave him like $5 and everything. And one of the other friends said, they're just going to go and use that to buy like drugs or something like that. And she said, Emont, but you know what? You never know when it's that one time where you can change somebody's life.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And that's a great example, because that's what's stopped friends of mine. They automatically assume that, but they don't know why they're there. Whether it's PTSD, post-war, just can't make it, mental health issues, whatever it could be. People are on the street for a reason. I don't think somebody wakes up and goes, hey, I'm lazy ass, I'm just going to live on the street. I don't think anybody would wish that on themselves, right? So it's no different than people say, well, why take the hard road and be gay? Why did you choose to be gay? Well, I didn't choose to be this way. I didn't choose to have mental health issues or not dealing with life well. I didn't choose that. It happened, whether what life has given you, right? And I think the other big piece is, with that, be kind, is really focus on good people in your life. I've been saying lately, keep the good ones close, and fuck everybody else. And that's true. And I'm not saying fuck everybody else. Meanwhile, that's coming from somebody that said be kind, fuck everyone else. No, I'm talking about the people that have their own issues, their problems, and they start exhausting you because it takes you away from doing good with others. And it's just a very selfish way to be. So it's kind of leave those people behind. Unfortunately, you have to try to help them where you can, but just focus on the good. Focus on the good people, and I do say that keep them close because I've got great friends, new friends that are in the gay world that I travel with, best friends at weddings at, so on, and then I've got my friends that I've had for ages, and that's what you do. So I think when I say be good, be kind, you get gooder and kinder. No, you do when you have such a positive cycle around you, when you have those influence of people that are, and I look at, you're somebody, and there's quite a few people, but you are somebody that even if I didn't know you and I see your posts with your friends, they always say you're a reflection of the people that you hang out with, right? So when I put the people up, social media is probably a great example, whether it's you see it as a negative or a positive. But when I post people, when they see the people that I hang out with, Brian, Alec, this, that, whatever it is, they're like, oh, those are good people. And it's a reflection of you. So yourself, even if I didn't know you, based on what you do with your friends, their smiles, their laughters, your your idiotic stuff that you guys do, which is amazing, you could tell that's a good group. You could tell you're a good person. You could tell you're a great person because of that cycle of people. So that's what I mean by that. Keep the good ones close because that just projects out further. And I would say that there's probably not one person in your circle of friends that's not inclusive. They pull people in. Like there's not one person that says, fuck them. I don't want to do this. No, I won't help. And we definitely need more of that for sure. 100%. Wow, this has been like a cycle. I didn't expect that because I had written everything down. Everything's here on my book. Just it was just not what I'm going to say. It's just this is the topic, and I didn't think I'd take it into that kind of story level telling, but it makes me feel good though. Like I think what you're doing here is great, and you're going to get mixed bag, and I think you're going to get different levels of communication based on the severity of somebody's life, right? Because I look at if you talk to my daughter, for instance, like she just turned 19, or my son who's 24, they don't have this yet. So what it says is the older I get, or the older you get when it talks to experiences, the more that you're going to feel and you're going to figure out and so on. So no, I appreciate this. This has been this is awesome. Awesome. Is there anything else?
No, I'm pretty sure we have covered the plethora of feelings today. This is absolutely, I have to say, this is a prime example of what I want this to be. Like, it's kind of like you said, you didn't know you'd go into the story level. I just wanted me and you to talk, and everybody else gets to hear the amazing story of Bobby and why he's such a great guy, and draw some of those lessons out of it. I think that's the big thing is we can learn from everybody. I'm sure we could learn something from your daughter and son that you might not even know, because sometimes we just don't ask the right questions to each other. And sometimes we're not as open with each other as we should be. And so that's what this is about. And you nailed it.
Yeah, and I think it's a terrific format. That's why when I heard about it through Matt, is that, and then I saw one of your posts on it and I just reached out and thank you for inviting me to do it, because it is something that I believe there should be more of a movement around it, and you've got a great platform. I'm a content creator. I'm in advertising, so I understand platforms and using platforms for a positive. And there's not enough out there. There's not enough. There's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of dialogue. There's a lot of entertainers. Not a lot. Quite a few entertainers that are having dialogues with people or interviewing people. But what I like about this is the 5 questions you ask, and what answers can you trickle down through that, and then the experiences that people have. And I think it's a great way to share myself, share my story, and hopefully it does impact or help others that are listening to it. But it's also too, it's what I like about it is how you reflect into it too as well, versus just listen to what I'm saying. You come back into it, and I think that's a great way to do it because people learn about you as well through that side of it. So that's awesome. So I love this. This is friggin' amazing. This is a great way to start off a Sunday.
It is. It's a perfect way to start off a Sunday. I That's the thing. I walk away from these and I just feel better. Even when the stories are like those, I cried for about a quarter of this, but it's like one of those good feeling, like there's those emotions and everything that I feel like a lot of times we don't share and we bundle up and just getting to listen to you, you know that you're not alone and all that stuff out there. Everybody goes through stuff.
Yeah. And I think also too is that you'll be as good as if somebody feels comfortable in this scenario. Like I taught for a year and a half through the pandemic in this exact scenario. We were talking to people, and I think the biggest thing for me is that this is the first time you and I like we've known each other social media wise, talked to each other for the past 2 years, 2.5 years. I drew you as well, which will happen again. Is that there's a trust that was built. So I think when you come online with yourself, even though it's the first time meeting virtually, um, that trust allows me to put my guard down and trust in what you're going to say, and that's important. I think it's important for people to say exactly what they're feeling versus hiding stuff and pretending to be somebody else because it's so easy to pretend right now. Um, and that this is me, whether it's emotional, I wear it on my sleeve, I do. And I think that's good because if I talked through all these points, especially the emotive ones, without any type of an emotion, then I'm not really feeling it. Like I'm not really, and you have to keep those emotions on the top. So no, I thank you. I thank you very much, Brad. I thank you for this. It's been awesome, and for my new headset. My new headset too. I've never had one.
Thank you so much for your time today, and I know people are going to listen to this and they're going to get something out of it, and that means a lot. That's what we're here for.
No, thank you very much. You have yourself a good Sunday. I appreciate this, and let's keep. Obviously, we're going to keep the dialogue going. So, quick question for you, and you can stop the recording if you want.
Oh no, go ahead and ask it.
No, quick question. How often are you airing these?
They are going to be every Thursday.
Okay.
This is open for everyone because that's the number one thing. That's like the number one thing I say in my life is everybody out there is at least worth getting to know. Sometimes once you get to know them, they may not be your cup of tea and it may not be a fit for your life. But everybody's got stories, everybody's got lessons that you can learn. Sometimes they're bad lessons, but you learn from them and everything like that. So, I think everybody out there, it doesn't matter who you are, you got a story, and you can be a guest on this show.
Because I think it's also too is that let me know because then let me know how you want to because I'd like to promote your stuff always, and I find this very evocative at the right time. Like this is a good time to be having these conversations, especially because you're coming out of the pandemic. People are still, I call it saddle sore. So just because they stopped riding, they're still sore. And I think there's a lot of changes. I've seen a lot of changes. I've seen, and luckily I've had a good platform where I haven't been attacked, politically or, there's been some issues, but nothing crazy. But you're right. Everybody does have a story. And that's where I was saying back to, are you really listening to somebody when somebody's talking to you, or you're just preconceived notion of what they're going to be like, And I think that's, and there is, like I said, there's two people in this world, assholes, and good. And it's whether it comes from the Bible or thousands and thousands and thousands of years of people, humanity. And usually the assholes in life are they're driven through selfishness, right? Or a fear of not succeeding, or a fear of failing. There's a fear thing going there. But I'm telling you, played both sides of the spectrum and being good and listening to people and listening to their stories, it's a lot more rewarding than being isolated and nobody around you, right? So I think this is what it does. I think this opens up, kind of like, call it the ray of light, the rainbow light. It opens it up, and I think it's a great. You're doing a great job doing this. This is awesome.
Thank you so much.
Like, I got you turning red.
I don't know if it's the tears. I've got a lot of emotions going on right now. But thank you again.
I want to thank you all for listening today. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Also, check out the video podcast at Handlebar ASMR on YouTube for extras.